you've been riding this hot wave to start the show. Episode 119 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always. And Brett, before we get into our Hindsight with Higgins, talk about how we did last episode. Over these past 3 episodes, we have gone a combined 10 units over. So we are doing a lot better than our January ended a little bit rough, but our February's almost got us back to even now.
Yeah, hot February on Next Best Bet, Higgins.
Absolutely. Not quite as hot as the weather's been, though. That polar vortex has been messing with a lot of America, including Texas. There was one blemish on last episode, Brett. Going into Hindsight with Higgins now, I see one little bit of red on our rundown, and it was my Kings +3. They had been playing well against the spread, but I think this is my second loss with the Kings in a row, so I'm going to step away from Sacramento for a little bit, maybe till after the All-Star break, see how De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, and them are playing after that. But, I mean, pick of the pod, Levy Locks again winning. I went 4-1, and you, a perfect 4-0.
Woo! We did it, baby. We did it. Well, eventually you're gonna get both sides, right? You're gonna get cold and you're gonna get these heaters, and we're enjoying ourselves a little hot streak right now, Higgins.
And that's why it's important that you remember sports betting. It's the long game that matters. A perfect example as well on our social media, if you follow us. I had posted a video over the weekend. It had gone 0-5. If you saw on Sunday morning, though, I posted an update. I didn't have the confidence to post my Saturday night picks because my Saturday day picks had gone so badly. I completely recovered on Saturday night with tennis and UFC fights, so it's all about the research that you do. If you do the due diligence and the numbers say to make that bet, then make the bet, but do it smartly, do it responsibly. And the unit betting helped me overall achieve saving the day on Saturday.
There we go, Higgins. Smart gambling pays off again.
Absolutely. Let's get into Beginner's Boulevard because every once in a while you'll see the line move sharply. Sometimes that could mean a player is out. That sometimes it could mean an injury or postponement or something in terms of the game settings. Or sometimes, like the word here, steam, a quick change on a line due to heavy wagering, and that's not necessarily of the game itself having some change that could affect the odds, but some whales coming in, putting a large amount on one side, and you basically have a sports book lowering its exposure, lowering its risk by adjusting its odds instantly in a large manner.
Yeah, and sometimes as you come in, maybe if well-respected bettors are also coming in and placing their wagers on one team, they'll adjust the lines a little bit as well. So a few different things can cause some steam here, Higgins. But you mentioned it, large wagers coming in, they have to limit exposure, and we talk about exposure a lot with teams like the Yankees, teams like Alabama in college football, right? Teams like the Dallas Cowboys. So there's some teams that even sportsbooks have to adjust to because of exposure as well.
And Steam is a perfect reason for why you need to line shop as well, because if one book took a really big bet, its lines could be drastically different than the rest of the market, and so you should check up on different sports books if those are available to you in your state. For me, in Oregon, I have one sports book to deal with, and you in New Jersey got a few more.
Yeah, I'm thankful that New Jersey gives you quite a few options, so I can definitely line shop. It's like the Wild Wild West in New Jersey, Higgins. There are so many books, it's crazy.
Well, let's jump into our NBA picks for Monday night. The Grizzlies and Mavs, Hornets, Jazz, Wizards, Lakers. We got some great games coming up, Brett. I mean, there's also even the Bulls, Rocket in themselves as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna find myself on two of these games, but I'm gonna focus in on Grizzlies Mavs, a little division game, Higgins. But I'm gonna take Memphis plus 4.5 in this one. I think Memphis has been playing a little bit better than Dallas, so I'm just gonna take the slightly better team. I don't really know if they're better talent wise, but they've been playing a little better this year, so I'm gonna take the better team this year with the points, and hopefully they'll keep it close at Dallas.
I took a look at that game. I think that's going to be a fantastic game to watch. I agree. It seems like Dallas may be rebounding again, so hopefully a competitive night between Luca and Ja. But those two are exactly why I don't know what side I can be on in that game, because if they both show up, it's going to be a grueling game. If one of them shows up and the other has a rough night, it's going to be a landslide either way, probably, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it'll be a close competitive game, and 4.5 points is enough to cover that. I probably would have taken Dallas's 4.5 point dogs as well. So I'm really playing the number here, Higgins.
I understand that. I understand that. I am going to go in a slightly different direction, just looking at the hot team. The Utah Jazz, against the spread and in real life, have just been phenomenal. Except for their most recent loss against the Clippers, they're 9-1 in their past 10 games. And if you look at them against the spread, they're 22-7 on the season. So even though they're 12-point favorites over a Hornets team that's honestly probably feeling a little inflated, a little high on their horse, considering Terry Rozier's amazing comeback on Saturday night, draining those free throws and then hitting the buzzer beater as well. I think, though, they're going to come into Utah and they're going to have a little bit of a gut check. Utah's a good team, and 12 points is a lot, but I expect them to cover like they've been doing all year. The numbers tell me don't fret. I'm going to follow the numbers.
Yeah, the Jazz have been covering like crazy. They've been winning like crazy, Higgins. You're right. 12 was a little bit too much for me, so I stayed away. And Charlotte's played well. LaMelo Ball has looked really good since he's been inserted into the starting lineup, averaging 6 assists, 6 rebounds, and I think over 12 points. So he's been a nice addition to the starting lineup. You mentioned Rozier. Rozier's borderline all star the way he's been scoring the basketball. I don't think he'll get in, but I mean, the numbers, Higgins, right on that borderline is an elite scorer in this league this season.
The East guards, the guards in general for the All Star this year has been very hard to decide. There's going to be a few players that get left out of that All Star team that deserve All Star worthiness in their accolades, absolutely. But Jazz, just following the numbers here at minus 12, it's a big number, but I think they'll still cover against that Charlotte team. Another game I'm going to be on, Brett. The Portland Trailblazers are heading to the Phoenix Suns, and I'm gonna follow with Portland because when they're on the road, they're playing great. When they're at home is when they're actually having a bit harder of a time. But they're 10-5 on the road. Damian Lillard has shown he can just flip that switch, and he's been doing it recently and just been going off. He might be getting disrespected in that All Star consideration, by the way, for the West. Who knows? But Portland plus 6.5. I think this is going to be a closer game than that. I think this is a game that Portland potentially wins. I'm going to stay away from the money line. It's juicy though at plus 220. It is juicy. I'm tempted, but I'm going to just go with the Portland plus 6.5.
Yeah, Dame was a little disrespected not being a starter, but he'll be an all star. I'm not too worried about it. And Portland with the plus 6.5 here. It kind of makes sense. Phoenix has played really well this year, and Portland's a little banged up, but I agree that's a little bit big, especially for Dame. Dame can certainly cover that himself if he's hot. So. 6.5 is within reason for me too, Higgins, but I'm gonna stay off it for you.
Should be an interesting one. Should be an interesting one. I've been loving what I've seen from Lillard recently, and especially on the road. I talked that disrespect when Portland had to fly the day of a game from OKC in our group chat. You and I were talking. I thought that was going to be a big issue. Damian Lillard proved that was not an issue for him at all. He played phenomenally.
Yeah, I mean, Dame is an elite player that can take over any game in the regular season for sure. Another elite player, Higgins, Bradley Beal. He's actually leading the league in scoring, and the Wizards have won their last 4 games in a row. The Lakers, meanwhile, on a 2 game losing streak, and I get 6.5 points with the Wizards. So, as a Russell Westbrook fan. I'm in the Russell Westbrook fan club. I'm a believer in him. I don't think they're just empty stats. I think he is a winning player. I'd like him to shoot better from three, but what are you gonna do, Higgins? Not everyone is Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Some players, have ceilings, Higgins. And if his ceiling is averaging a triple double in the NBA back to back years, well, damn, he's a pretty damn good player. So I like him and Beal on the road, plus 6.5 at the Lakers. And yeah, this is a points play, Higgins. I really don't think Washington keeps the winning streak going in this one. I do think the Lakers figure it out, but I don't think Washington goes out by over two possessions. No, I really don't. They've been playing too well.
Hey, I agree with you for two reasons. One, the Lakers are dealing with AD out and Dennis Schroeder's out, so that's a guard down for that Russell Westbrook Bradley Beal duo. And then Washington against the spread as an underdog has done rather well this year. They're 11-9 as an underdog overall. As an away dog, they're 6-5. So we talk about sports betting 53% of the time, 55% of the time. That means you're a winner. Good job. Edging over 50% even in those stats. Good job, you're a winner. So follow those stats just over 50% of the time. You'll get your money back betting on Washington as a dog right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're playing really well right now, Higgins, in general, to be quite honest. So, if there's a time to bet on Washington, the time is now while the iron's hot.
Absolutely. Now let's go into some college basketball, Brett. Now we have some very good Monday night matchups. Syracuse at Duke. We have Oregon at USC. We have Texas Tech at Oklahoma State, Brett. And I'm going to be on one of those teams in orange. Can you guess which one it's going to be?
I want to guess our alma mater, but I feel like you wouldn't be telling me to guess if that was the case.
You're right. I couldn't get my heart on the Syracuse plus 5.5. That entire line looks interesting. Duke's been playing rather well since Jalen Johnson's left the program. I believe they're 5-0 in their past few games, but they've been horrible against the spread recently. Meanwhile, Syracuse all season long has seemed to be a roller coaster of emotions, kind of like they always are of cardiac cues, and I can't trust them a damn bit. But Brett, you made a very good point to me about this Syracuse team before the show.
It just feels like they played Duke close at Duke. Like Syracuse emotionally gets up for it year in and year out. You mentioned the Dolage charge to me. I mentioned the CJ Fair block charge to you. The Elijah Hughes like 75-foot heave before halftime. I mean, it just feels like these games are always close at Cameron, and that has me leaning to the Syracuse side. The books are also leaning that way, Higgins, with the minus 116 juice. So it would have me leaning that way, but I can't bet it confidently. Kind of what you were saying. Syracuse is just a roller coaster, and I will be way too heavily invested emotionally, so I do not need the financial burden as well.
I agree. I'll tune in out of pure interest. I don't need to be on it financially as well. But like I said, I'm gonna be on a team in orange on Monday night. Oklahoma State at Texas Tech. Oklahoma State beat Texas Tech at Texas Tech when Texas Tech was ranked earlier in the season as well. Texas Tech was 13th in the nation at the time. It was an 82-77 overtime victory. Oklahoma State at home now is a 1.5 point dog. Not to mention Texas Tech is 7-14 against the spread this season, Brett. I don't buy it. Oklahoma State's winning a second game. They're sweeping the Red Raiders this year. Put me on Oklahoma State plus 1.5. Absolutely.
Yeah, Higgins, I really don't have a feel for this game, to be quite honest with you. I just haven't watched enough Oklahoma State over the last few games. or Texas Tech. So I have no idea how either of these teams are playing coming into this one. Like, I can look at box scores, but you just have no sense of how they're playing. I just don't want to touch it. But I do think you raised some good points. Oklahoma State won on the road. Why can't they win at home or at least keep it close enough to a 1 point game at home?
And against the spread, they are just over 500 on the season. I was talking about that with the Washington Wizards in our NBA segment. On the season, Oklahoma State is 10-9-1 against the spread this year. In their past 10 games, they're 6-4 against the spread this year. So this just feels like Oklahoma State is going to sweep the Red Raiders. It just feels like that's going to happen. They got the win down in Lubbock, Texas. Now they're going to get the win up at home. It's just that simple.
Fair enough.
Let's jump into Moneyline Magic, though, Brett, because we're going to talk about a college basketball game that was much more difficult to decide. This game went on forever.
Yeah, it was a started in the afternoon, ended late, early evening. So yeah, I'd say forever is a fair way to describe it.
Stanford versus Washington State. This one went to triple overtime, and one name very simply, Brett, Noah Williams. He scored 32 the game before, 40 in the effort against Stanford. And Brett, they would need every bit of it because Stanford led for basically the entire second half. The Cougs stuck around though, but jumping in with 2 minutes left, a Stanford free throw made it 60-57.
Yeah, Higgins, and then my guy Bryce Willis from the 914 baby would steal the ball and dunk it to make it a two possession game.
But like I said, Brett, Noah Williams was on. He drained a three, cut that lead right back down to two. A Stanford free throw brought it right back to 3 point game with 40 seconds left. Wazoo missed a shot, had a foul. Stanford missed a free throws, but set up an opportunity to drain another three. Noah Williams, once again, 63-63, forced it into overtime.
Yeah, Noah Williams is your guy, Higgins, and he was big in this one, as you mentioned.
The first overtime did not see much scoring, though, just 10 points. Stanford would score, Wazoo would respond. Stanford would score, Wazoo would respond. Basically back and forth the entire time, but tied it back up at 68. No one scored for a minute 50, though, Brett. It was a dull ending to that first OT with it tied up at 68.
Yeah, definitely a dull ending of the first overtime. But don't worry, Higgins, we have two more.
Yeah, this is where Wazoo took control a little. They started scoring, tying the game back up. A layup by Jaden Dallaire for Stanford tied it at 76, and on to triple overtime we went. But in the third overtime, Brett, Stanford wouldn't score again, so Wazoo just ran away with it. 85-76. An exhausting game, but Noah Williams, the sophomore at Washington State, 40 points, career high. Good for him.
Yeah, great win for Washington State over Stanford. And, I think that Washington game woke up this Cougs team a little bit, Higgins.
I'm sure Noah Williams got the game ball. Maybe he wants to send that home. If he does, probably should use some FedEx Office. A new year brings a new beginning. For all my listeners that own a business, I want to talk to you about FedEx Office. If you are just starting or have been running your company for generations, FedEx Office gives you the best way to print marketing materials, posters, signage, graphics, and so much more. With FedEx, creating, editing, saving, and ordering are fast and easy. We're teaming up with FedEx and Podgo to bring our listeners 30% off your next order of $100 or more at podgo.co/FedEx. That's podgo.co/FedEx for 30% off your next order. FedEx, the world every time. Brett, let's just jump right into some hockey on Monday night, though. There were some amazing lines out here. I had a hard time choosing which games I wanted to be on. How about you?
I gotta be honest with you, Higgins. There was one that kind of just stuck out to me, and I kind of was like, "Ooh, I like that," and I really didn't need to look at much else. So I jumped right into this Kings Blues game, and I saw the over under was currently set at 5.5, with the over at -108. So the juice a little bit in my favor, only 2 cents, but I'll take it. That's better than nothing, right? That's like a little gift from the sports books, and
Slight gift.
I felt like these two teams can certainly put the puck in the net, and the Kings certainly aren't stopping anyone from putting the puck in the net. So I like this over 5.5, Higgins.
You know my feeling about over 5.5s. I love the play. They've treated me dirty a little bit recently, which has me a little more hesitant, but I'm never going to tell you to not take an over 5.5. It's the lowest you're going to see. Although, actually, Brett, shortly before game time in the Philadelphia Flyers Boston Bruins game, in Oregon at least, the line dropped to -4.5. It was like a minus
Wow.
268 line, but there was so much play on the under 5.5 that it actually dropped to a 4.5 play. The Bruins scored like 7 though. Like they hit the over on their
On
own.
their own. That's great. That's so funny. Oh, man. That's sports betting.
That is sports betting. Now, Brett, like I said, I had a hard time picking which games I wanted to be on. I did find a parlay I love of two money lines: Sabres Islanders and the Flames Maple Leafs. Now, if you look at it, I like the Islanders, who are the favorites at -160, and I like the Maple Leafs, who are the favorites at -165. Put them together, and that's a +161 parlay for those two. And I think it's a fantastic job when you consider that the Buffalo Sabres and the New York Islanders recently played each other. It did not go well for Buffalo. New York won 3-1 and 3-0. Honestly, don't feel bad if you want to take the Islanders on the puck line because they've won by multiple goals in both games they've played them. I'm staying with the money line though because I think they're going to get another win at home. By the way, both those games were in Buffalo. This game's in New York. Toronto, this game's in Toronto against Calgary, and guess what? They also have a good history against Calgary this season. They've played them 3 times. They beat them all 3 times in Calgary. Why would I expect that to be any different in Toronto? So I'm taking some evidence of these teams playing previously. They won on the road. Why shouldn't they win at home in both instances? And +161 was good enough pairing for me.
Yeah, and we have to remember that these teams will play, 8 times this year, Higgins. So a lot of games. So, this won't be the last time these teams meet either. So you'll have more times to play these trends.
Absolutely. This is the first of a 2 game series between Toronto and Calgary, and it's a single game between New York and Buffalo, actually. I think it's a game that they were making up that was postponed earlier at the beginning of February. So, interesting little tidbit right there. But I think they've already played each other. It kind of speaks for themselves early on, and they're familiar with each other. They're division opponents. But moving to the West, because I do have another pick in the NHL, Brett, and moving to the West, Colorado Avalanche are hosting the Vegas Golden Knights, and both of these teams pretty good, near the top of the West Division. St. Louis is at the actual top, but both of these teams are right behind. Vegas has 21 points, just a point back of St. Louis. Colorado 19 points, 3 back of St. Louis. A game with some big implications, if you will, even if it's this early in the season. You got some top dogs fighting it out, and I like Vegas, the underdog here, and kind of for what we were talking about earlier. They play a lot. The Avalanche grabbed the last two. They've played 3 times already. Vegas won the first one. Avalanche won the next two. All were single goal games. I feel
Yeah,
like Vegas is going to take this one back.
yeah. Well, their last one was quite a weird experience at the Lake Tahoe Winter Classic. I want to say there was like an 8-hour delay in the middle of it. So I would kind of throw that last game out the window and just kind of say that's a weird game, probably not much to base much off of. But, you mentioned the other one that they played, and I do think this is a big game, Higgins. These teams are towards the top of the West, like you said.
And so I think with these games, if you also look at it, Brett, Each of these teams have a goalie listed as out. For Vegas, it's Lehner who's out, and for Colorado, it's Miska. That leaves Marc-Andre Fleury facing off against Grubauer. This is Fleury's 7th straight game. This is Gruber's 4th. However, if I'm going to trust a goalie to go back to back to back and have to deal with that while the other goalie on the team is out, I trust a 3-time Stanley Cup champion over a guy that's on the Colorado Avalanche without a Stanley Cup.
I mean, that's fair. Although Gruber's, he's played pretty well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he has a 1.67 goals against.
Right.
Fleury has a 1.71. I'm not taking anything against Grubauer, but if you have to put me, you know who's gonna be in the net, Fleury versus Grubauer, and you have two teams that have been back and forth in terms of their games already this year. I'm taking the 3-time Stanley Cup champion. It's just that simple, and especially if he's a dog at plus 110 on the money line, give it to me.
All right, take the champ. Fine. I'm with it. I'm with it. Take the champ.
And this is someone that, as we've noted, likes the Flyers, who's taking someone that won 3 with the Penguins. As it is. As it is.
Fair enough. Let's go to your pick of the pod since you've won 2 of those in a row.
Alrighty, Levy Lock and pick of the pod. Like I said, we went 9-1 this episode, Brett. I had one blemish. It wasn't my pick of the pod, though, but both of us won our pick of the pods in Levy Lock. I'm going with the hot hand, the Jazz, minus 12, even though that's a large spread. The Jazz, the proof's in the numbers. They're 22-7 against the spread. They are 9-1 in their past 10 games overall. They did just recently lose to the Clippers, but now they're going to be at home against the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets have to travel. I don't think they're going to get up for this game enough. They're playing a tough Utah team even after they're riding high on their last win.
Just say it, Higgins. The proof is in the pudding.
The proof is in the pudding.
There you go. You got it off your chest. And I'm going to also ride the hot hand, Higgins. The 4-game winning streak Wizards. In this 4-game winning streak, Higgins, they've beaten the Celtics, a playoff team. The Rockets, they haven't been so great. The Nuggets, a pretty good team. And the Blazers, a pretty good team. So they've beaten some pretty solid teams, Higgins. And they've done so pretty convincingly. The Nuggets was a 2-point win. But I like the Wizards as 6.5-point dogs at the Lakers. I just think it'll be a close competitive game, and I think if there's a time to be on the Wizards, it's now when they're playing their best basketball of the season.
Makes sense. I like that pick as well. I think that we're staying off of some of our picks for reasons like our pillars, and I think hopefully we can carry our last 3 episodes in and finish out February strong. We had that rough January, but we're back getting closer to even, Brett. Episode 119. Make sure to follow us on social media, by the way. We're going to have some picks in between our podcast episodes at MBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channels. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channels if you're watching that. Please do. This has been episode 119 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.